They're not dressed nicely enough.
That's correct. You'll be shocked to hear that people going to a shitty metal club are not dressed as nice as you.
It's really fun being the nicest dressed person at St. Vitus Bar. And then like the amount of people who like comment on it after the fact and are like, "Oh, Matt's always well dressed." Like my mom is very proud.
We do like that. Okay, I see we're on the YouTube now. I want to just see that people come this into the room.
Yeah.
Where's that?
And it's not
tab?
private like last
Yes,
time.
yeah, that's basically what I'm trying to make sure
Um,
doesn't happen. Oh,
so what we were talking about last
look at
time,
that reactions. All right, that's what I like to hear. See,
what we were talking about last time that got hidden was this article going around. It's a little stale now, but whatever. About how no more pop stars are being created.
oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
And we wanted to talk about how legit that was.
Well, I don't find it very legit. I think it's very stupid.
I agree. I think it's yet another article written by people who have no clue about anything and don't know what they're talking about and are primarily talking out of their own ass just to try to, you know, because I think like the big realization that you have to have around like anyone over 30 commenting on music is like
Wait.
they're afraid of getting no. But you would agree with this. You would agree with this. Is that all these people are afraid of getting old and dying, and they want to feel like the thing that was relevant when they were young is still relevant. So even if
Yeah.
the nature of pop stardom has shifted, I wouldn't say it's really changed, but it's shifted. They can't acknowledge that some of these new people are pop stars because that would mean the thing they grew up with is no longer valid.
You want to know what's a really funny thing? This is like the thing I say all the time is that I hear from old people. Oh, there never will be another Nirvana again. I'm like, well, Skrillex was the next Nirvana moment. Brockhampton was one. Nicki Minaj was one. You're just someone who only pays attention to rock radio, which is why you think something that's ridiculous. Yes, you've never seen another seismic shift in rock and roll because that was the last gasp of rock and roll being the big monoculture moment. But yeah. And I should say to everybody,
I mean, I would disagree with you on that.
Well, let me just say this to everybody. We will be discussing scammers in 3 minutes. We're just letting people come in.
Yeah, I would argue that the last big rock monoculture moment, I think there was two that happened when I was growing up.
Okay.
One is Green Day, American Idiot.
This is the difference, though. That is a monoculture moment, but it wasn't one that shifted the culture to all go to a different genre. Whereas, like, that's what the Nirvana moment is. But yes, I agree with you.
Here's one that shifted the culture. Here's one that shifted the culture. Black Parade, My Chemical Romance. I think there's a very clear before and after of that album.
So I think that this is an interesting thing that, in retrospect, a lot of people are starting to see that this was much more seismic, that shifted over emo. But I think the big argument for it was in the present, it was eschewed so much by culture that it really didn't seep in the way that there was a million think pieces on Nirvana and the kids, so that adults had to face it. But I would argue that you are right that now when we look back, it shifted the culture in a major way, but the mainstream did everything it could to say, this is not happening, this is fucking cringe, look at these fucking kids in their makeup.
Yes, I agree. But I was just trying to point out that I don't know. I was just making that argument. But I agree that there are other Nirvana moments like Nicki Minaj, like Brockhampton. I would even argue that like Billie Eilish was sort of that kind of moment, like because there was a whole bunch of bedroom kids in a way that like Lorde wasn't able to do. Like there was a bunch of like young women, teenage girls, like trying to make art and didn't really understand like what does that mean for me, and she shaped what that meant for them.
I also agree with you on this, that Billie Eilish will be very consequential. I think the reverberations of Billie Eilish will just take longer, just as I think also Boy Genius is going to be a very big reverberation.
My
that it was
client's a genius.
yes, yes, that they will. The saying that Tony Wilson used famously around New Order was "Let 1,000 flowers bloom," and but it takes time for them to bloom. On that note, this is way too much agreeing with each other, Matt. I think that the funny thing today is I think this will be our most agreeable live stream, which is a great way to end the summer because we're going to talk about all the pieces of shit in the music business that you and I are not fond of. So it's a good old time. Matt, I'm going to remind you that I'm going to edit this later, so that doesn't mean that you can slander people because my lawyer won't like that since it's my channel. So no names, but we can infer people. Why don't we get started with whichever on this list you'd like to start with that we made?
Oh, fuck, I don't have the list. I'm so prepared. Man, I've had
you added a lot to it.
Yeah, I
okay.
know.
Because of that, I'm
spend more time on TikTok than you do.
This is you want to know what my screen time said I did for TikTok last week? 12 hours. Because I also use it for my day job.
Yeah.
So I do clock a lot of TikTok now these days. Okay, here's what we're going to start with. One of the ones I put on the list was fake awards. So particularly, I find a very funny thing that there's a couple people on TikTok now that have fake gold records in their background for every shot. And it's really funny because it's always been easy to fake a gold record to somebody who doesn't know what they are looking at. But I guess I have to actually go get mine to prove this. And, major flex. Give me a second. Matt, you can talk.
Yeah, so you see, basically, you can buy a pretend gold record for anyone, right? Like, they're kind of a novelty gift, right? And the other piece is that if you don't know what you're looking at, or if it's an indie label, sometimes people do buy gold records, or just because, whatever. We were talking about doing it for an indie label I work with, because they had sold 10,000 units, and that was something we wanted to celebrate. And when you start to, dig into all the award type things, there's a lot of weird variations. But Jesse has a real one. Jesse, show us this.
So I gotta make sure I can see this on the camera. This thing, this is very confusing to do right in the camera. Okay, so this RIA hologram thing, that's what makes a gold record real. And it's so funny because this, I look and the one person I'm particularly talking about on TikTok has more followers than Matt and I combined. And they always talk about all their big accolades, and you're like, every one of those records in the back is fake. And it's so funny because obviously most people don't get trained to know that, but they're always selling themselves, and this is another one on our list, as gurus, mentors, every fucking time they say it. And I think one of the best rules, because we want to give you a bunch of rules to follow to know things, when somebody is proclaiming they are a mentor or a guru, you should know that that's basically like saying snake oil salesman.
Yeah.
Matt, you got anything to add?
So I just want to wrap up on this fake awards thing real fast, because there's a whole other side that Jesse didn't even touch on. Mm-hmm. So fake gold records, cool. But there's a lot of fake companies out of LA especially that will send every new artist they can find on Spotify. They'll scrape the emails or whatever, and they'll send them emails and be like, you've been selected for the awards.
Yes.
All you have to do to be entered is to pay a small fee. And it's very weird. I went to one of these ones. It was very strange. Bunch of no-name artists, who paid to perform at the industry showcase, which seemed to mostly have people working at weird scam companies. And then And you have to pay to get into the party, the same way you have to pay to like be a Grammy member, but also go to the Grammy event.
Mm-hmm.
And they try to like portray it as a baby Grammys or whatever. And like most of the time, it's just no, you know. And ultimately, when it comes to the award stuff, like first of all, if strangers aren't coming to your shows, you did not get nominated for anything. Second, if you go and look at the previous winners in your category, or you know, and you haven't heard of any of them, like at all, that means it doesn't matter.
Yeah, I think one thing to always remember when people are like, "Oh, I want this award," it's like if someone sees you have no monthly listeners and no stream ratio, no follower ratio, which everyone knows how to do, what do you call it? I think it's always the easiest thing to be called out. Derek Quiethouse has a thing that he's interjected that I think is important to put in here is that he agrees gurus are overrated. Mentor pros. I think he's right that I may have cast a little too wide a net on mentor. There is real mentoring things. I think it's really when somebody brands themselves in their name. So like, here's a good example is da 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 da. The mentor. I've never seen someone who brands themselves in the first title as the mentor. That's not scamming. I know you don't do that, Derek.
Yeah, and because ultimately, like you and I do have, I want to point out something here. Jesse and I do have mentoring programs.
Well, I do not. I just consult. I don't consider that mentoring. I actually don't like the character. While I think it's good to mentor people, I don't like to call what I do mentoring because I don't. I don't think it's worth it for people to pay as much as I cost on an ongoing basis that actually need mentoring.
Yeah, no, that's fair. Anyway, do you want to move on to the next one?
I think the last thing I would like to say, though, is that, like, even, like, a funny thing is I see all the time, 34-time Grammy award-winning producer. You'll see, like, that all the time. It was mixed by this 35-time Grammy-nominated person. While that's very nice, it really does not do anything for you because everybody in this business who's experienced has learned that credits are easy to get and what do you call it? As well as like Grammy nominations, it's like that can mean that person did that 30 years ago and their sound is so out of date. It just, I have to say, I think awards are some of the most like amateurs value them. Professionals really go, okay, yeah, that means nothing if like, it's one thing if you are Billie Eilish and you won Best New Artist. It's another thing if you were nominated for Best Engineer for a comedy album, and that means that you put up one fader.
Yeah, and this is like one of the things to realize is that very frequently, especially in the producer engineer world, and this is not to talk shit, I understand why they do it, but anyone who has any affiliation with a Grammy winning record throws that in their resume.
Mm-hmm.
And like
we could talk all day about what a scam the Grammys are one day.
Good Lord. Let's move on to gurus.
Yes. Let's move on to gurus specifically. That's really the one. Especially, I think Rick Rubin promoting this book has really brought on a slew of like people who think they're Rick Rubin because they read that book and then call themselves a guru because they wish they had his clout. And I like this comic. Grammys more like the scammies. But Matt, where would you like to start with gurus?
Here's my take. Every single time. There's three things I notice. We're going to do this Bacon Smith style. Three things I notice that make them...
Whoa, I feel like I'm watching TikTok again.
Three things I notice that they that are kind of define the fake guru thing. And for the record, if you do a consulting call with me, I will teach you stuff bacon spit style improvised. It's very entertaining. But the first thing is their content sort of music business adjacent and only hate content, or is there actual advice? Because if you actually watch a lot of these people on TikTok, and this blows my mind, but like there's a couple people who are pretty obsessed with Jesse and I because they're jealous.
What he's, we should make the
it's
clarification. What he's saying, people are pretty obsessed. We're saying that there's an industrial complex of people who do what we do, who basically throw shade TikToks at Matt and I all day long, and we have a text thread where we just laugh at them.
Yeah, but the point being, what I noticed with a lot of those people is like look at someone's content and figure out if it's all industry news, hate, and mindset tips, but no actual like advice, then that guy's not real. Like I definitely have content that's like some of the content is mindset stuff, but
Yeah.
Jesse actually had a really good rule of thumb the other day where he said, you said to me, we were texting and you were like, if it's over 20% mindset, it's probably bullshit. And I think that's basically accurate, is like mindset stuff is important, but that's like some of the lowest hanging fruit. Like if someone can't like give you a meaningful advice that clearly is being used, then it's probably a scam. The other two things. Two, who do they work with? What you'll notice is a lot of these guys can't concretely be like, oh, I work with X, Y, and Z. Like that's why like when I do my like sales videos, I'll be like, hey, here's who I work with, so you can see I'm legit. And that list is like a bunch of big names. That's to like help you understand I'm real, because a lot of these other people trying to do stuff do not work with anyone cares about. And like ultimately, if I was going to hire someone, would I want to work with someone who's like doing hundreds of thousands of dollars of business for big bands, or someone who's weird and does, like allegedly helps indie artists? So whatever. And then the final thing I think is like, has this person actually been doing this for a long time? Because you saw this especially during COVID, a lot of like gurus just popping up because they just needed to figure out a way to make money, and they were in a band once, right? But it's like,
I may have
what does that mean?
I may have ghost written some of their content before I launched my YouTube channel.
Did you really?
Have we never talked about that? Well,
that's really
after.
funny.
That's for afterward. I'll break the NDA, not in public. But yeah, I do want to point out Derek has another great comment here. Quiet House Recording. There's also no such thing as a Grammy Award-winning studio. Studios don't win Grammys. People do.
Yeah.
And that is, when we talk about music business scams, that's like one of the funniest things, because like I keep talking about the Van Halen green M&Ms thing, which a lot of people get wrong. There's a great Harvard Business Review article where everybody makes fun of Van Halen because they would say, we want a dresser filled with green M&Ms. But what people don't understand about it is that would tell them how much the venue took their needs seriously. And if they saw that there was just M&Ms in there, they'd hire 10 more people to work on the venue because they're going to need backup. If they saw there was just a few that were different colors, they would hire 2 more people. And if everything was fine, they would just go about their day and know that this venue has their shit together. I think one of the things, like a good example is I had to hire out a studio recently in Vancouver for a thing to do with an artist I'm working with. We needed to do a remote session where we commented to the person in Vancouver, and I saw a Grammy Award-winning studio. I'm like, we're not doing it there. I know that is a green M&M of bullshit, that person's totally lying.
Yeah, absolutely. So just keep those things in mind.
Yeah.
Cool.
All right.
Next
on to the next one.
Playlisters.
Oh yeah. All right. Let's get it. This one I think has some nuance. So, uh, I particularly have been thinking about this a lot because there's been a TikTok I wanted to reply to from Venture Music about this. One of the things I think that's very weird, and it's often a debate Matt and I get into, is that some people talk as if the genre of music they work in is a monolith of everything. Playlists in hip
Yeah.
hop, pop, and EDM have become that if you can find a good one, you are the world's greatest detective. But in plenty of other more obscure genres, there are so many cool playlists you can submit to.
Yeah.
I work across a ton of different genres, and I see all the time people being like, there's only scammers and paid playlisters. And I'm like, that's true in your genre, but it's not true in so many of them. Matt?
Yeah, I think that the way I always describe it is like playlisting. If you find a good one, and even if they charge you, but it's a good one, you're fucking set, right? Like, because I have a client, a small stoner rock client who gets like 50 streams a day on a song because he just found the right playlist and his music is the exact right fit, right? And if you're like really leaning into a certain niche and then you go look up all the playlists in that niche and pitch to everyone and you do some research to make sure those playlists are legit, yeah, that's awesome. But what you definitely see happening a lot is people botted playlists a few years ago, and that was a lot easier. Built up a bunch of followers and then charge people to be on it. And it's like you should be able to, if you're not sure about a playlist, like literally go DM some of the smaller artists on that playlist and be like, yo, is this legit? Should I give this guy money?
Which is a good way to start up a friendship, I might add.
Absolutely. Yeah. Like there's definitely valid playlists out there, but I think there's also a lot of noise you know, and I think Venture Music in that TikTok, if I'm remembering it correctly, does kind of address that, and does like the golden age. Like, here's the thing, ultimately, is the golden age of playlisting is over.
Yes.
It used to be that like if you really did the homework and ground it out and you were like right in the right niche of a niche, you could get on like 10 sick playlists that all those fans were on and you could just fucking do it and get your, tens of thousands of monthly listeners. And I work with artists who are in that exact scenario, but but then they put out a new album and they were like, oh, the golden age is over. We're not getting added to more stuff.
Yeah, for a
Which
lot
sucks, but that's just what it is.
We should also make the caveat: the golden age of user playlists is over, whereas editorials are still, I would argue, strong as ever, for sure. And doing your editorial playlist pitch is still one of the most important things you can do for your chance to do it, because that is an unbelievably seismic event many times when you get on those, especially early in your journey. And the other thing,
Cowboy Destroy.
Yeah, you should bring that one in.
Cowboy Destroy asked a really good question. How can artists be expected to try a bunch of bad playlists before you find a good playlist? And that's kind of why Jesse and I are saying like it's probably not worth the time and effort in most cases, because you like, unless you like are really like sitting there with Playlist Supply and like looking and trying to figure out like what is and is not legit and like hitting people up to figure out if it's worth it. I just don't. It just seems like a much ado about nothing.
So I have a caveat here that I've been starting to change my mind about in the last 2 weeks. I got hit up by a guy named Aaron who makes this website called artist.tools, and I've been messing around with that a bunch, and that has very good botted playlist detection. And it's very, very affordable compared to Chartmetric. I will say, one of my consulting clients called me after they got, I think, 100,000 plays from bots, and then asked me if they were fake plays, and the site didn't detect that. But for the most part, what I've been doing, like when I look and I can see that a playlist is clearly botted from Chartmetric, from what I know, they've been pretty damn good with detecting it, and like I feel like for the money, it is accurate enough that you're gonna get rid of a lot of headaches from the jump if you're using that site. And it's I can't remember how much money it is a month. I'm sure I could look it up right now while you talk, man. But
Yeah.
what do you call it?
The point
It's a
being,
really good tool.
yeah, the point being, there are tools, but like, what I'm trying to say is I see fewer and fewer people in 2023 really popping off from user playlists.
Yeah.
It's not the same as it was 2, 3 years ago. So I would just avoid this one by and large.
Uh,
Um,
yeah,
yes,
well,
you can
I
say
would
what it's
avoid it
cost.
if you're in the bigger genres, but if you're in obscure genres, still think a good example.
Yeah,
Like if you're into like a lot of the stuff I'm into, the like broader hyper pop stuff, that the scamming just isn't a thing. Like I literally I'm in those playlists all day. Most of them are legit fans. A lot of them have emails, and like it's not a bad community. And the same thing even with like let's call it the more dirty punk stuff uh is like still really good, but like truly some genres are cursed. So I think it's really you got to
yeah,
learn what's right for your genre, which is I think also the same thing as for Submit Hub, is that there is people that Submit Hub works with for so well in some genres, and for some it is a just set the money on fire because that at least it'll keep you warm type thing.
absolutely. Um, Now we have one that Jesse and I argue about all day. Well, actually, no, we agree on a
Well,
lot of
I
this.
mean, I mean, maybe it's the context. I think we're going to agree on, which is that
Yeah.
if you see Instagram ads and it says "I'm going to grow your Spotify," you have someone who's selling you bots in a scam. Do you disagree?
I just launched a Instagram ad the other day for our because I was trying to test some stuff. But broadly speaking, yeah, basically, couple things here. One, most people telling you they know how to do ads do not actually know how to do ads, and this is why you look at the client base. Two, anyone who tells you if you give me $1,000, I will get you X amount of streams with certainty is also scamming you. You could give someone a ballpark estimate of how many streams that will get you. That's fine, you know, but or what a best case scenario looked like with that budget. That's completely tolerable. But you should not be, but do not hire someone who's saying, "Oh, $1,000 for 100,000 streams." And I actually had someone play himself. It was so funny because he was like, "Oh, I'm trying to decide between you and this guy who's like clearly a scammer." And he was like, "If I gave you $30,000, how many streams would I get?" And I was like, "Well, here's what happened over here, but I can't guarantee that." He's like, "Oh, this guy guarantees." I'm like, "Well, that's because it's
Mm-hmm.
bots." And I think that's like the thing is like people who speak in absolutes in terms of ads are fucking with you. Because, like, think about it this way: going in to doing an ad campaign with whoever, I have no clue how good the song is, how good the video content they have to market the song is, what the artist's reputation is in the scene a lot of the time, you know, et cetera, et cetera. And all those things are dramatically going to impact if an ad is successful or not, right? So I would just keep that in mind. The other thing I would keep in mind is like not all ads are fits for all types of artists. That is to say, I'm talking to an experimental artist right now, and like I don't know, we got to figure out like because I don't know if streaming ads are going to work for someone who does like 10-minute long experimental percussion things. So we got to
I
find something that we got to find another solution that fits for them. Same with like sales ads. I think people see this is why I don't talk about them that much. Like, I do sales ads where we're getting 20, 30 times what we put in. But that's for major pop artists who you've heard of.
mhm. Yeah,
You
which
know, it's
which I've
not
always
for
said is the only people I think Facebook ads work well for is people with very
like I
established
can't,
bases.
I can't go get 20, 30x return on ad spend for anyone in this chat. You know, just because that's how it is.
The point I wanted to make here was much less about that. Just like we should blanketly ignore everyone with Instagram ads, but if you're finding somebody through an Instagram ad, if you're not talking to 3 of their clients who said that they did not know this person beforehand and they're doing good work, you're going to get scammed. And one of the best rules in this business is I don't hire anybody unless I have 3 endorsements from them from somebody first. That can be an accountant. I just hired a new virtual assistant 2 weeks ago, and I had to get endorsements for that. And I think it's a really big thing that, like, I know it sounds annoying to have to contact those people. It sounds annoying to have to say to the person, I need 3 references, but like it roots out so many things, and especially since you can get, I hate to use the word, but it's totally real, is that you can lose your fans also, like get shadow banned and get your streams deducted on Spotify, and they will basically tell you you don't exist if you overbought your profile. So it's very much worth it to just say, I'd like 3 references.
Yeah. Yeah. And anyone legit can just do that in a minute.
Millennial Animal says, everyone wants skinny jeans, but they don't fit everyone. And I would say you haven't been to Brooklyn lately, buddy. Those are out of style. What do you call it? I feel like there was another good comment in here I wanted to address. Silent Script said, next it'll be Grammy-winning playlists. I'm looking forward to the day that a playlist is good enough to win a Grammy, personally. Definitely not Luke says, would you suggest Spotify ads? I have never spoken to anyone who has liked a Spotify ad. Matt, have you?
Assuming you mean the like on platform Spotify ads, yeah, those don't seem to do anything.
Yeah, I've never seen anybody who said that I got good ROI from that, and even that goes to my clients with million monthly listeners to the smallest of them. Derek Quiet House Recording has a question that says, do you think that artists with 400 million streams on 2 or 3 songs and not more than 50,000 streams on the rest of the songs is signs of bots or astroturfing? Funny enough, that's a huge discrepancy, but like if we were saying 7 million to 50,000, what I often find is more often than not, that is somebody who is doing a lot of quantity of releasing music, and the quality disparity between their songs is often terrible and not always that. Or in all honesty, one of the ones I saw recently was just that some of the songs hit on TikTok and some of them don't.
Yeah. And then the other thing is, like, I manage this sort of radio rock band, Autumn Kings, and who I've talked about with Jesse extensively. And some of their songs are a lot higher, but it's just because those are songs that, like, were the perfect fit for the hard rock workout playlist. Yeah. Or were the perfect fit for discovery mode. And they just, like, sometimes you'll see someone whose song, like, hits the algorithm in just the right way, where it's just like, oh, this has constant playthrough, this has constant whatever, and so it just keeps getting fed to people. So yeah.
I mean, I even think of, too, that if you looked at my friend's teen suicide's profile, they have an insane disparity because some of their songs hit on TikTok. I think another one was in like a movie. And then the ones that weren't, like, they're in a lo-fi indie folky band most of the time, and sometimes have grunge songs. They're all over the place, and so it makes it, I think, much more the sign of bots is like when you see the weird countries that this person should have no following in, that are bot countries such as Malaysia and Indonesia. That, like, when that's a lot of the monthly listeners, that's the clue to me a lot of the time.
Yeah.
Jason Mom Premier says, what about passing flyers in your local area? I think that's one of the greatest tricks right now, is that everybody's so obsessed with online that flyers go very far.
Yes. The Q show has a question, but we're going to address that in a little bit here. Two more. It's two away, so we're coming to that one.
Great.
The Q.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, we're moving at a good clip actually. So, Matt, was this yours or was this mine? Sinks.
I think this is yours
Okay.
because it has
Then,
a typo.
do you mean when I did this at 2 a.m. drunk that I misspelled things?
This is like the dark secret of the Jesse Bacon relationship.
The dark secret of Matt and I's friendship is that it's the rarest thing in the world when we're both awake at the same time to text back and forth.
Both awake and sober.
Yeah, there we really go. So anyway,
Yeah, sorry guys.
I think one of the biggest bullshits sold these days is I will teach you how to get syncs. Because syncs is still the last part of the industry that is 99.9% of the good stuff there is so gate-kept and made all about a relationship. And this is because syncs largely are that one person is, maybe two, is asked to curate some choices for a song and a show, and you have to be on that person's radar. And it is a very, very difficult thing to get to the right thing, which is the other thing too, is that's why those people usually make good relationships with labels. And this is one of the last benefits of why, when everybody's like, why would you sign to a label today? Well, syncs are a lot of money, and a lot of time it's label artists who have labels who have the relationships with sync houses, and that's why they sign to it. It's literally a conversation I have constantly. Matt, what do you see here?
Couple layers here. So I think that there is some legit stuff in sync that people are not taking advantage of enough, especially if you're a very certain type of artist. Like my friend XJ Will, who's kind of a sync influencer on TikTok. He tends to have a lot of really good advice, and I've spoken with him a few times. But I think the difference is that like he's someone talking about like, oh, music libraries and stuff. And like when you look at the approach of like, and I also, the main guy in Autumn Kings is also just like writes to spec. And it's like that you need to understand is a very like writing for commercials is a very different game than being like a touring artist. And you can make a lot of money that way, you know, but a lot more of it, that's a lot more like writing and producing your own song every day, and then having 20 songs, submitting that to a library, then writing another 20 songs and submitting that to a library and doing that, right? But the people who are like, oh, I will get you in movies, you just have to pay me this monthly fee, not it.
Yeah, well, and particularly, I feel like there's all these courses that pop up and that are like, I will teach you to get syncs, and it's like, oh man, like $2,000 of this, and it's like, I feel like that's where we get into the thing that I really don't like about courses, which is just that they're often predatory in cost towards what a musician can afford versus what they get out of it. And that's the stuff that makes me very not happy about them.
Yeah, so let's pivot into this because this is our next thing, and the Q show is asking about it. Is like, look, you should not, if you're just starting out, especially, do not go for the big investment. That means if you're putting out your first single and you have no audience, do not go and hire the $3,000 a song mixing engineer. Do not go and hire the $5,000 PR. Do not go and pay for a $10,000 course, because most of these courses are bullshit. Jesse, do you want to elaborate why?
Most of these courses are things you could find watching YouTube and TikTok in a matter of hours if you just did some searches, because that's where their research assistant copied it from. Fun fact of why I started my YouTube channel: a very prominent YouTuber was reading from my book, and I got mad and started making videos. That person also, I should say, sells a course with literally paraphrases of my book and I know it's not like, sometimes you could be like, oh, well, all this information is the same. I came up with some of these terms myself, and this person literally has just adjectives switched from my fucking book. And I could sue and do cease and desist and embarrass them all day if I wanted to, but really the better thing to do is I try to put out what will obsolete them anyway, which is people will just get enough information that they won't buy their shitty course. But the point being, so many of these courses also never get updated. They're so out of date. It's because one thing I should also say, what people do all the time is they will send me these people's courses. And of course I have to look after I get this email. And I can't fucking believe how inaccurate the information is in it for what they're charging. $2,500 fucking dollars for a bunch of stuff about telling you to use services that have been out of business for 2 years. It's fucking unbelievable.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's basically that. It's basically, you know, a lot of these people, because look, between, I think we could say 2016 to 2020 was kind of the death knell. There was this huge, like, become a millionaire selling courses thing on the internet. And a lot of it was fueled by this guy, Russell Brunson, who actually does have a lot of good advice, but I think it got distorted and turned into a lot of malarkey. And
Matt's been in Pennsylvania too long. He's saying malarkey.
I know, I've been at my parents'. But the point being, you know, like, when you're these courses, you have to realize that the vast majority of these courses are just a bunch of PDFs or like some videos. And they're done by people whose content that they put out for free is, and I'm not trying to blow smoke up my own ass or up Jesse's ass, their content that they put out for free is not as valuable as Jesse and I's content. One of them paid me once to write like a guest article, and then they turned around and they dumbed it down so much. I was like, and it was a pretty like basic article in the first place, you know, and I was pretty shocked. But like, that's consistently the thing, is like, what they're doing is they're trying to prey on people and charge exorbitant prices to get them into their course that they haven't updated in 3 years, so that, because people would rather spend money, what they've realized is people would rather spend money than actually act on stuff, because they feel like by spending money and buying this course, they're making progress in their music career.
Yeah, that is 100% dead on. And I think like the other thing too is like part of what makes them predatory is you don't see what's in the course until after you've bought it. And then you have this shit sandwich of lack of effort, of their research assistant just paraphrasing other YouTube shows. And now the funny thing, Matt mentioned Russell Brunson. What Russell Brunson does is he tells people to take other people's expertises and then sell them in these courses by creating funnels, because Russell Brunson runs the grift that he owns the best tool for making funnels, which is called ClickFunnels. And so he's basically selling all these morons to go into ChatGPT and saying, please paraphrase this video so I don't get sued for copyright, and then assemble it in a PDF and then sell it to you for $2,000, like the greatest secrets of all time. There is literally so many of these around. They're all advertising, or they have YouTube channels where they try to use that as the funnel to sell it. And it's when people say, where's your course? I always say, not happening, because I ain't doing that.
Can I tell you the other thing I genuinely don't understand about courses?
Mm-hmm.
And this might partially be like how I was raised or whatever, but like, I've never really seen a course that was better than like this book.
Mm-hmm. But we know I don't.
Or
like that book,
if you want,
yeah.
Oh, I love this book.
I know.
This book is like my life, but like, or Jesse's book, like this is the thing, is like all these people writing courses have basically taken their information from a few core sources, right, that are like music industry books, but more specifically, and this is important, a lot of them are just taking it from general business books and adapting it to the music industry. But guess what? All those business books, which will help you if you sit down and buy like the 10 best business books, that's if you went and bought hardcover 10 best business books, that's like $350 if you have Amazon Prime. Like, and that's cheaper than all these courses, and that's going to be dramatically more value.
Yeah, I'm with you. Okay, let's move on to the next one. God, so many scammers. Matt, this is yours.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, just a quick one. This ties into the course thing. This is just something I've seen a lot. It's also scam books you see a lot. Is this term you'll see is the new music industry, and you'll see so many people who will be like, how to get rich or how to get fans in the new music industry. They have been using the term the new music industry since I got involved in the music industry 13 years ago. And I'm genuinely confused about like when this new music industry started, because I was going through some old stuff and I found something talking about the new music industry from the mid 90s, which we would have described as the height of the old industry. And it's just like, oh, so that grift just has kept going. Um, and so
Well,
that's just a scam term that triggers me. That's all.
so here's a fun thing. Uh, I should also say somebody's asking for our thoughts on a specific person. They clearly showed up late, where I said we will not be discussing specific people because we don't want to be sued. So my thing is this. Obviously, I have a book called The DIY Guide to the New Music Business. So Matt said this at one point, and I have caveats, but then I thought about it. So why did I first name my book that? I ran Facebook ads and Google ads as a test and saw what got the most clicks, and then named my book What Got the Most Clicks. And using the new music business gets a ton of clicks, which is why people do it. But funny, I took it to heart what Matt was saying, which was that it's just like it's become so played out. And I've been rewriting that book, and that is not in the title of the next edition. And I've made 10 editions of Get More Fans, and the next one will be basically the same book at its core, basically the same skeleton, but with what's called a lot of muscle implants, some Elon Musk hair, some nice new fresh coat of paint.
That's like genuinely crazy because Jesse's book like changed my life when I was 19.
Oh,
Um, and now we get drunk at A Bar together.
yes, that's right.
Shout out A Bar if you ever want free
No, we're not.
consultation.
I'm deleting this from the next thing. I do not want anyone coming to bars. It's already bad enough that I live on a busy street and have get asked things while I'm walking the dog. Okay, I want to keep
so good.
us.
I love it.
I want to keep this going. Okay, unfortunately, Charlie, you're asking a thing that's out of the purview of this call that we discuss a lot on other things, but I want to keep it on subject so we don't go 4 hours. Somebody asked, I can't find the comment, what ratios you use to spot inorganic listens.
Yeah.
And what's interesting is you can't really use a fixed ratio because the number disparities get different at different levels and they're different across genres. So dance artists and hip hop artists get so many more streams than rock, but they also seem to bot at much higher levels. Because honestly, those botters are making so much money, they grind harder with paying for the bots. And what I mean by that is, so let's say I had a playlist that I was scamming with called Trap Heaven. And whereas if you were an indie rock band and it was Indie Heaven, I could pay for 2,500 streams on bots, and you'd be like, oh, okay, that was worth the $10 they did, and I kept 5. Whereas charging $400 to be on Trap Heaven and throwing 150 for 200,000 streams, that makes that artist feel worth it. So you have to use lots of different things. What I always just say is I've watched enough and I have enough tools and I can look at the location data that if I look at follows, monthly listeners, and their streams, I have a pretty good bullshit detector that I've honed over the years when it comes to each genre, but
Yeah.
I apply it to each genre. Matt, what do you see there?
Ultimately, I think the only thing that really matters is how much money are you actually making? How many tickets are you actually selling? How much merch are you actually moving? That's what matters. Now we're going to move into vanity metrics. And Joaquin Chavez asked a question. An artist in my scene I'd never heard of has huge monthly numbers for our genre, unusually high YouTube watch numbers, but has no label and their Bandcamp numbers are nothing. I don't understand it. And that's because of vanity metrics. Do you want to get into that, Jesse?
Sure, let's go. You start.
Yeah. So I mean, basically, this ties into sort of the ads thing we talked about earlier, like or the botted playlists. It's like, and what Jesse just said, smart motherfuckers, the people you want to be working with, see right through if something is botted or not, or they see through if, oh, this person got on a bunch of good playlists in the good old days, but they're not actually worth any tickets, or they're not actually going to sell any units, right? They're just a playlist artist, right? And that's fine. Like I work with super legit artists who get a lot of playlist streams who can't really sell that much. They're still trying to find other, but they need to find, and that's great because they get a monthly paycheck, but they need to find their own path to profitability, essentially. And I guess what I'm trying to say is like, you can go and pay for, fake followers or whatever. But if that's not real, that's not real. But people still pay for it. And that's what you'll see there's an artist like this in New York who has like 50,000 Spotify monthlies, 30,000 Instagram followers, whatever. Jesse and I have talked about him. And it's just like, yeah, but bro, like, when's the last show you played? How many people showed up who you didn't know personally? Hell, how many people showed up who you did know personally? 8. Like, clearly, people see through it right away. And maybe you fool someone one time, but immediately after that, the word's going to get out that you're a fucker and that nobody should fuck with you.
I think just the other thing with the vanity metrics is it's like anyone worth their salt sees through the bullshit. I think some of the indicators in that comment weren't necessarily true. Like I see all the time artists who like are doing well on one platform and not Bandcamp or another because if you look, you can see like, a good example is there's, I shouldn't say their name, but there's an artist I really like. When I go to their Spotify, they have 1,000 monthly listeners, but their YouTube does great. But they make fucking incredible videos. So if you just looked at metrics, you'd see that. You got to always look a little deeper. But anyone I know, even the dumber people in the music business I know how to look for that stuff. And I think that's the thing is like people all the time are like, oh, well, if I don't have my numbers, I can't get to show. It's like, well, the answer to get your numbers up is to do authentic things, not inauthentic behavior that people are going to see through and then it's just going to cripple you. And it's just really the thing. You're in an era of the music business where like I will never say you can't do bots because obviously big artists do bots, but if you get out of proportion with your bots, and it's easy to get out of proportion with bots when you have no authentic listeners. The thing that makes like when you see the Vice thing about like Gunna using bots or whatever, it's like, well, Gunna had 100 million plays that were authentic and then added to it with bots. And it's like that proportion just added 10-20%, which helped juice it a little. And like anything at all, since you have no authentic listens, doesn't do anything for you except for get you flagged and then get you shadow banned. All right, Absolutely. Matt. Promoting your music in weird countries is your note here. Speak on it.
We touched on this a little bit, but you'll see a lot is people like you'll see this. This is one of the most common ways you see playlists getting botted, or you see like those guaranteed stream things going. Is like they go and they'll say, "Oh yeah, we'll get you a playlist." But if you go look at those people on that playlist, like all their streams are from Guatemala, or Indonesia or whatever. And it's the same thing. Like you can get a lot of streams quickly with ads if you're targeting countries that you're never ever going to play, or where they have these massive bot farms. But that doesn't benefit you. That doesn't give you anything, and that's really all I'm trying to kind of address here is like, just look at that, or even if you work with someone, you see all the streams come from a specific place. I remember we hired a playlister once and all the streams were from St. Louis and the artist was from San Diego. And I was like, come on, Like, don't lie to me.
Yeah, fun
You
times.
know, so just keep that in mind.
Yeah,
Um,
I don't have
good.
much to add to that. So why don't we move to the next one? Which Matt, do you have a hard out, or can we get through all of these?
I have time. You're good.
Okay. I think a good one to get to next would be record labels and management companies you pay to be on. Never have I ever. Now, Matt and I get into lots of discussions where I'm like, you said this thing as an absolute, here's an exception. I'll tell you what I've never heard an exception to. Anyone being happy with a manager or a record label they paid to be on. Matt, have you ever heard of that?
Yeah. Um, for the management company side, yes and no.
Really?
There are definitely managers out there who are on salary from the artist, but
I,
that's usually set up in a way where everyone in the band, everyone in the company is on salary, and
yeah,
so it works a little bit differently.
I was going to
But
say
that's
that's a difference. Like the difference I think is paying. A good example. I get a lot on calls. This guy says he'll manage me for $1,000 a month and no percentage, or and a percentage. And if they are agnostic about your music, they will do that for anyone. That's when it's bad. Whereas what I think is fine at first is, for example, I had a call with somebody the other day, and they're like, "I'm paying my manager until there's income coming in." That's a totally different story. Is like they're in this until there's 10% or 15% a month to take. Then they're on salary to compensate for some of their work. And they're investing more time in it to the point that it's basically minimum wage. Totally different story.
absolutely, absolutely, yeah. And again, and sometimes you see, like look, like I manage artists. Sometimes you have to take a rate cut on something because you're trying to just get it over that hump because you know that like we're going to get to this place if we keep doing this stuff. You need to keep paying your bills. I have to have other ways to pay my bills, but if we keep doing this stuff and you can pay your bills next year and play 200 shows, then I'm going to make a ton of money. But that's a separate game. The record labels you pay to be on thing is like a really big one. You see a lot where people will try to be like, oh, well, let's do this, that, or the other, and it's like, especially a record label you pay like a monthly fee to be on. Like, nah. Like some labels, now what will happen that is legit, just to be clear, is if you're with a smaller label and you want to do vinyl, for example, sometimes the label might be like, yo, we don't have the money, but if you're willing to help fund the vinyl,
Yeah.
we can distribute it. But usually in that situation, you didn't pay to be there. You know what I mean? They want to do a joint venture with you and they have distribution, etc. But again, all of this stuff, right? Because like we're talking, like it might sound confusing because all these scams were pointing out exceptions to them, right? But like, look, this is why you build your community. This is why you get more connections in the scene, so that when someone offers you a deal you're not sure about, you can go hit up 6 friends who are signed to small indie labels and be like, we got offered this deal. Does this seem like something real? Yes or no? Because like sometimes I see deals that throw me that I'm not necessarily sure I'm comfortable with. But guess what? I go to Jesse, I go to like 4 or 5 more of our friends, and I go, hey, this is what was offered. It seems atypical, but this actually would work. But like, this is why you build community so that you can know this actually does seem legit, even if some of the things don't seem like they're completely logical. Do I do it?
This is also a good thing for the advice on why it's so important to have a lawyer who understands your genre. Like people all the time be like, well, can I use your lawyer? And I'm like, my lawyer works in emo and you're a dance group. They don't know the standards of what record labels offer in dance. You need a lawyer whose head's in the game, seeing the standards of your dance every day. If you're a dance person who's being offered a deal, the standards across genres and across this business are all over the place because no one knows what anything costs. And you see so many different things, which is why you have to do exactly what Matt just said, which is reach out to other people and be like, yo, these numbers look concurrent with what you see these days. If in
Yeah.
fact, even too, if you looked at an Atlantic Records deal from 2009 compared to 2023, you wouldn't even recognize it. I have done
Absolutely.
that, and it's the thing. It's like you need somebody who's current with standards that are current, and what's the going things, because also lawyers are always inventing new scams to get their clients weird things, and that's how you get situations like if you guys Google Victory Records problems in contracts, you could read some of the biggest scams you'll ever see in the history of the music business.
Jesse, do you want to? Cowboy Destroy brought up two good scams. Do you want to touch on those first, or do you want to touch on our last thing, and
Have
then
you
we'll answer
ever
questions?
heard of that paying a label to mix and master? A label? Well, it'd be one thing if the label is a mixer and mastering engineer who does it. That'd be fine, but I've never heard of that otherwise, Matt.
Um, Correct. I like that there's. I'm looking down at my phone to look at the comments, and as I look, there's an ad for a scam company being played on the stream.
Hell yeah.
So sorry, Cowboy Destroy. I do want to answer your question. Um, so yeah, so broadly speaking, like you do see these producers who get like a distro deal with the Orchard, and then they try to like be like, "Oh, I'll put you out of my label if you pay me." That seems like kind of a scam, in my opinion. But also the other way this question could go is like sometimes your label might just not give you enough money to pay for someone to mix and master, but and then you just need to go and pay someone yourself. It gets sketch if they didn't give you an advance and then they say you need to go work with this person. They might suggest someone, or they might have someone they have a bro deal with, like Ripple Music, a label I own a piece of. We don't usually give a lot of advances, but like we do have like people we recommend you work with, but we try to be very clear that like getting Tony from Moss Generator to master your record is a strong suggestion because he's done a bunch of other really good records in that niche. Go do what you want to do, but this guy will do it at a bro rate. So just because he's our friend. So just keep that in mind. The other question Cowboy Destroy asked was talk about the people on TikTok asking you to play their song for money or paying for reviews.
I have to tell you that and the YouTube reactions, I have consultation clients where that has been a very big thing for them with a great ROI. One of my good friends who is my neighbor, they paid to be on a YouTube reaction thing recently, and their band at their peak at 40,000 monthlies. Like they have fans they can play. But that literally like got one of their songs from like 10,000 streams to 100,000 because it was a perfect thing. It was a perfect fit. The song is like kind of got some shocking lyrics, and the reaction to it was really well produced. But like paying, I think $200 for that was amazing. I'm not against all what I would call astroturfed gatekeeping of influencers. I mean, let's be honest. I do SpawnCon on this fucking channel all day long. I'm living my life, and Matt's living his SpawnCon life too. It's how we make some of our money. That doesn't mean that the people we make these videos for aren't very happy. I say authentic things. I say what I believe. In fact, the video I put out today, I mean literally, I put a caveat in there about all sorts of things. I don't think that that's necessarily an always bad thing. I would just make sure yet again that they've been doing these things and it's been getting numbers.
Absolutely. Couple things here. Two more good questions that came in. Do deal memos allow you to spot scams, or do you need a detailed contract? And so with that, deal memos, in my experience, have generally allowed me to spot a scam. Obviously, you want to have a lawyer go over the contract and make sure it's still basically what it said in the deal memo.
Yeah,
Like let's not.
a good caveat to this actually one of the reasons you have to watch the contract too is you say I want this changed, and Matt and I will tell you like we've lost weeks of our lives of progress to things because the record label says, okay, we'll change that. And then you get a revision and that revision's not in there. Is the same fucking percentage that they said they would change is still sitting there, or it jumps back a version and comes back in with the old percentage. Like, you got to remember.
And just real fast for
go ahead.
People who don't know, a deal memo is basically before you get your contract, before the label pays a lawyer to make it. Essentially what you're doing is you're getting like 15, 20 bullet points that are like, these are the terms of the deal. And they send that to you to kind of agree to in principle before they make a contract. And then the other one that came up was about paying for press. So I want to point something out here. And here Joaquin talks about a metal band getting solicited to pay for a feature in a big hip hop publication. And
wait, a metal band paying for a hip hop publication? That's what it is?
A metal band was randomly solicited to pay for a feature in a big hip hop publication. So here's the thing. Blogs and stuff like that, unless you're very big, do not get clicks. You know, paying for a review on a website, even a big website in your genre, if you're an unknown artist, is not going to convert anyone. And I've seen it happen time and time again where, like, I used to write for a really big website in metal, right? And I wouldn't charge anyone for that. I would just, like, do premieres because it was people asked me to, whatever. But, like, I would look at the SoundCloud numbers after, you know, because you do the premiere in SoundCloud or the YouTube video, and it's like, oh, this got you an extra 35 views. Like, and that was like at one of the biggest metal websites. And that's not because that metal website is a scam, you know. It's because people aren't checking out new artists on small blogs. Or big blogs or whatever.
I think that's an interesting thing because it's yet again some nuance. Like, one of the things I see over and over again. In fact, I can talk about this example because he's let me. Is Brian, my partner, is in a band called Super Bloom, and I remember he said that, like, they didn't get a lot of streams from a premiere, but then what it was all the right people who heard it, because then he got hit up by tons of managers and big opportunities. Some publications are absolutely fantastic, and some are not influential at all. I mean, a good example, if in emo, if the alternative is tweeting about you from your account, there's going to be so many people who check out your stuff that are emo influential people in the business, influencers, playlisters, that it's going to start getting the ball rolling. I mean, literally the best record I've worked on in months is up on this Pro Tools right now. And it's one of those artists that, like, they championed and now they're signed to a big label. We're doing a remix and a remaster. And this band's probably headed for really big things.
Yeah. Yeah. But I guess what I'm saying is that that never comes from a paid placement somewhere. And Michael, real fast, we're not allowed to name names on this because otherwise we might get sued. But anyway, so we have one more point here, which you actually added last minute, I think. So do you want to go into it?
I did add this last minute. I remember. Okay, one of the ones I see that's really funny, that's been going around, and, like, Matt and I have been talking about doing this all summer, and it was like kind of we like collected the scammers over the course of the summer, and but the funniest one I see rising now on my TikTok, you know, the thing I'm addicted to, is people who use vocabulary intimidation, and what I mean by that is they say terms that no one would ever fucking use, so you feel stupid, like you have to learn from them. And the funniest thing is like one of the things I've learned so much over the years. Now, let's remember, my day job is I have to make podcasts and articles that communicate very complex things. A good example is yesterday I literally had to explain why unemployment is so low, inflation's high, but the economy is considered the best it's ever been in America, yet it doesn't feel like it to so many people. Not easy to do. You do not do that by talking about stagflation, Minsky moments, and all these terms that are going to intimidate people. You do it to bring in. But what a lot of these scammers do is they try to intimidate you by making you feel like you don't know things and you then have to pay them to do it. Yet again, Unfortunately, like we said, Russell Brunson, not all bad. Technique he unfortunately teaches people to do, which I think is, yet again, predatory and scummy, and I don't like. But if my general rule of thumb, if you feel like you're moderately knowledgeable and somebody is saying lots of big words that they'll teach you the secrets to, they're fucking scamming you.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's like, one of my goals is, one of the biggest moments I had kind of like understanding like how Bacon Spitz needed to be was my grandma doesn't speak English as a first language, still has a really strong accent when she speaks English. You know, I only speak French to her. And she was like, oh, I watch your videos and I like them because I can understand everything. And my grandma is like an 80-year-old woman from Florida who's never played an instrument in her life, or from France who lives in Florida who's never played an instrument in her life. Right. But like, that was like a moment where I was like, oh, like I need to keep this fairly straightforward English because I have a big international following, you know, and I'm trying to grow internationally. And I'm also, when I'm taking meetings with high level managers from Poland, guess what doesn't play when you're dealing with a scary Polish death metal manager? is trying to use a term like EBITDA or something, because they're just going to hate you. Like, you know, like nobody at a high level in the business is like trying to show off all the vocabulary words they know. Right? Like straight up. Like, in fact, one of the best compliments I ever got from one of the highest level managers I work with was, he, like a manager who works with arena artists, was, you know, and he's in his 50s, and he said, you know, Matt, what I like about you is you can explain tech stuff to me and I don't feel like an idiot.
Yeah.
And that's like the point, right? Is that like my grandma can like get something out of Bacon Spitz. That, like, you know, guys over 50 running the music business can be explained social media concepts because of I'm doing it simply. Anyone who has to try to overwhelm you with that, you know, a smart person can explain something complex to a 6-year-old.
Yep.
That's what it is.
Yeah, and I think in general, the things I find, you know, it's like a really funny thing. I am literally, I get a lot of things wrong. One thing I never get wrong is when I see a YouTuber come onto the scene and they condescend people about the things they do. Now, granted, I jokingly will make fun of musicians and condescend the dumb things they do, but it's to play up the humor on the channel of this and make people feel better about not doing some things. But like, if you condescend while you're explaining tech and they're like, you know, you truly, I can see that your channel's not going to grow instantly all the time. And I've never been wrong about that when I see the person who tries to vocabulary intimidate, try to show off how smart they are, and try to make people feel dumb for that. The one exception I may say is like edgelord metal explainer channels, but that's a different story. And the reason somebody like Finn does so well is he tries to present information in a way that everybody's going to understand, no matter what their knowledge level.
Yeah, basically, because it's just, and it's, yeah. Anyway, the point being, it's stupid. People who try to make you feel stupid are insecure about their own stupidity.
I think that is a great place to leave it. You can follow me at Jesse Cannon. You can follow Matt at Bacon Bits online. We're going to do some broad Q&As after this, I think we discussed, Matt. But I think this is it for our themed streams of the summer here. We'll be doing some other things, so you should follow us so you know when we do that.
Absolutely. And it's at bacons.bits, just for the record.
Yes.
You good. Right. Thank you everyone for watching. Follow for more. DM for private consultation.
That's right. All right, thanks.
I said the thing.
You said the thing. That means it's done.